The other thing is when we eat sweets, it triggers those feel-good chemicals in the brain, like dopamine, that reinforce this reward cycle. Did you know that 75 to 90% of toddlers are eating sweets every single day? If your toddler is begging you for sweets, highly turned on by sweets, or turning their nose up at other nutritious foods in lieu of a sweet treat, then this video is for you. When your toddler only wants sweets, it can feel like a parenting fail, like you did something to cause this. Well, first off, I want to let you know that there are several reasons why toddlers prefer sweets, and I want to give you some tips for moderating your toddler's sweet food intake so it doesn't get out of control and interfere with their health or their growth later on. So in this video, I'm going to reveal why toddlers only want sweets and what you can do about it. Before we begin, if you like this topic, this channel, please give me a like, follow this channel, and comment below. Let's get going. So if 75 to 90% of toddlers are eating sweet foods every single day, how the heck does this get started? Well, there is a good reason, well, several good reasons, in fact. Number one, when you're growing a baby in your belly, they are thriving and getting nourished in the amniotic fluid that they're growing in. So that amniotic fluid in your belly happens to be sweet, believe it or not. And so that is entering your infant's mouth and affecting those taste buds and solidifying a sweet preference. After your baby was born, if they breastfed, then they were also getting a source of nutrition that is naturally sweet. Breast milk is naturally sweet, so if you combine that with amniotic fluid and getting a daily, multiple times breast milk feeding, you can see that they become very accustomed to the flavor of sweet. Now, on the other hand, if you chose to feed your baby formula, that is not sweet. That has a very flat flavor profile. So there are different pros and cons about, the taste preferences that come from babies who are breastfed versus babies who are fed infant formula. But just know that babies seem to be hardwired from the get-go for that sweet flavor. And that informs their food choices and their likes as they get introduced to new foods down the road. The other thing is when we eat sweets, it triggers those feel-good chemicals in the brain, like dopamine, that reinforce this reward cycle. So when you eat something, it triggers those feel-good hormones. We associate that with feeling good. We associate that with eating something sweet, and that drives a desire for eating more sweets. So when we introduce sweets early on in life, especially before age 5, but particularly before age 2, we can set a very solid foundation of sweet preferences in our young children. Simply because they've been exposed to it early in utero, they may have been exposed to it through breast milk, and then if we also introduce things like chocolate milk, candy, cookies, cakes early on, that can solidify that sweet preference. So all together, the more they taste, the more they like, the more they want sweet foods. So it's not entirely a parenting fail. Part of it is just nature. So why do too many sweets potentially cause problems for young children? Well, number one, sweets don't have a lot of nutrition. So you're not going to find a lot of nutrients in sweets, but you will find a lot of calories and potentially a lot of fat. Not that those nutrients are terrible in your diet. I believe that all nutrients and all foods can fit into children's diets, but when young children love sweets, are asking for them all the time, and will only eat sweets, it can become problematic. As I mentioned earlier, more sweets sort of creates the cycle of wanting and desiring more sweets, solidifying that preference for sweet foods. And then we also know that the more sweets that kids eat, the higher they are at risk for cavities. So those are just some reasons why too many sweet foods in a child's diet can cause problems down the road. So how can you offer sweets in a way that sets your child up for success and avoids harm? First off, if you've got a really young toddler, if you can hold out on offering sweet foods like candy, cakes, and cookies for as long as possible, you'll be ahead of the game. It doesn't negate the fact that your child was still born with a likelihood to like sweets, but you'll eliminate that reinforcing of that preference by continuously offering those foods to your child. Watch out for foods like juices. I have a video for that, which you can check out here above. So watch out for juices, watch out for flavored milks, watch out for sodas, and watch out for coffee flavored drinks. So all of those beverages tend to be more for adults and older children. So if you've got a toddler, watch out how much of those you are giving your toddler. Even a periodic taste of your latte or sip of your soda can drive that preference for more sweet flavors. So it can have an impact, even though it feels like or seems like it's just a little bit. Look for hidden sugar in foods. So foods like flavored yogurt, vanilla yogurt, for example, sugar-sweetened cereals, even cereals that seem like they're not that sweet, can have some added sugar in them. Like I mentioned, flavored milks. Granola bars can have a lot of added sugar in them. And again, these foods aren't inherently bad for kids, and they can be included in the diet. But when we're talking about toddlers, if every day they're having a snack of vanilla yogurt and a granola bar, you can see that that's building and strengthening a preference for sweet flavors and sweeter foods. I think the best piece of advice for sweets is not to completely eliminate them or restrict them, but to have them be a very moderate part of your family diet, to include them in predictable ways, and to really have a policy around when they show up in the family meal plan, how frequently they show up. And that's all up to you as a parent. You have control over the food that your child eats and the foods that you bring into your home. So think it through in terms of sweet foods, especially if you have a young toddler, because again, what we do in those early years really formulates the flavor preferences and the eating habits of our children later on. And last, don't use sweets to get your child to eat something healthier, like broccoli or green beans or meat on their plate. When we use sweet foods like ice cream or dessert to get our kids to eat the healthier foods, it ends up backfiring in the long run. They actually don't end up liking those healthier foods, and oftentimes we partake in solidifying that preference for sweet foods that can sort of carry on through life. So that's it for today. Tell me, what are your questions about letting your toddler eat sweets? You can drop those in the comments below, and while you're there, make sure you like this video and follow this channel. I will see you next time.